All right, ladies and gentlemen, so today I'm going to show you how to make a Chemex coffee using a small, I believe this is the 2-cup Chemex. I could be wrong, but it's a small Chemex as opposed to a big Chemex. So this is what we're using because I'm only going to make coffee for myself today. The number one thing you're going to need is a very cute baby to watch you. I start off with boiling my kettle. Excuse my dirty stove, but yeah, this is my kettle. We like to boil the water. I like to get my water to about 197 before I just stop the flame. It usually goes up a little bit from there. While the water is boiling, you want to prep your Chemex. I rinse in a tap, but I should also mention that whenever I am boiling water, when I'm boiling water, that water has got to be filtered, or distilled water is best. But to rinse out my Chemex, I go to the sink. I don't get too bougie with it, you know. Some of you are kind of like me and think you're already bougie, but whatever. Next, I'm going to show you guys how to fold the filter that goes inside this particular Chemex. You'll see here there are two filter types. There's an elongated one here on the left, and then there's a wider one that goes in the bigger Chemex. I'm going to show you guys how to fold this puppy. Here we go. Okay, so you're just going to take one filter out. It's going to be shaped like so. The first fold is going to be in half, like so. You're going to make sure that it's as symmetric as possible. Your second fold is going to be from the bottom up, like so. And I like to fold right here around this point. You'll see the curve right here meets the edge. I just kind of make sure that is a flush straight line right there. And so you'll get quicker at this the more you do it. You have this flap that you just folded. You're going to fold that in half now, okay? And I like to make sure that the bottom comes to a very sharp point. Excuse the crinkling. There's a cute baby here with a crinkle toy. What you should have now is a folded cone, like so. And when you open it, you want to make sure that you open this one flap and then leave the other three on one side. This one single flap is going to be on this side. The other three flaps, I guess, are going to be against the spout of the Chemex, just like so. Now we're going to prep the beans. What you're going to need for this is a scale. I like the digital scale here. I like to use just like a flattened out coffee filter at the top of this because it doesn't really bear any weight, but it allows me to pick up whatever I weigh down. Of course, we always use Crown Coffee Roasters coffee for our coffee here. For this particular brew, we want an amount of 30 grams of coffee beans. So we're going to measure that out. You want to be careful because it can be as sensitive as one bean. One bean can make a difference in what you weigh out at. So you just want to pay attention to your scale here. I have a Cuisinart Burr Grinder. Okay, this is what I recommend. If on the less expensive end is the Cuisinart Burr Grinder. Okay, looks just like this. I usually keep my setting around here so that my grinds are about the consistency of kosher salt. But I like this grinder as an inexpensive option. If I had what I wanted, I would have the Barata Encore. That is a really good Burr Grinder, and it gives you a consistent grind. So our water is coming to temp here at around 197. I'm gonna put the cap on the kettle, and what you need to do is just kind of wet your filter, okay? Just in a circular motion there, not a ton of water. You don't need a ton, but you have something to add? You like coffee? Nothing, okay. But what wetting this filter does is it kind of takes the the papery taste out of your coffee, but it also warms your vessel. We're going to tare our scale, bring it back to 0. There we go. It smells so good. So you see the consistency of the coffee beans there. Again, we're looking for about the consistency of kosher salt. Just tap it, get all the grounds at the bottom. Just gonna pour them in. And you wanna make sure that says 30. And so you'll notice there's some clumps and stuff like that. Some of the grounds are a little fine. I shake them up and we'll kind of address that in a sec. Now the next step is called the bloom. And what the bloom is, it requires a timer, and I don't have one because I am recording with my phone and I usually use my phone as my timer. But what this is a process of just wetting the grounds, kind of pre-wetting the grounds. What this does is releases the gases from the coffee and allows a better extraction of the coffee. And so we're going to put to the 30 grams of coffee, we're going to put 90 grams of water. That is 3 times the amount of coffee, but I like to put that much. Usually it's recommended that you put 2 times the amount of coffee. I'm going to go ahead and tear this down to 0, and I'm going to put 90 grams of water in here. And we're just going to make sure that we get all the grounds wet. This is the only part of the process, the brewing process, where I will actually hit the sides just because I want to get all of the grounds wet and involved in the extraction. You want to make sure you're paying attention to how much water you're putting in. I got 91 grams in. I'm just going to take a little probe here, a little stick, and stir around and make sure that all my coffee grounds are wet and that I don't have any more of those clumps in there. I want to make sure that every ground in here is involved in the brew and in the extraction process. You also want to be very careful here if you're going to use a stick like this, because that filter is wet under there and this is sharp, and so I've poked a hole in there before, but just want to be careful. You want to pay attention. This bloom process should only take place for 45 seconds. I'm paying attention to the timer from the actual camera shooting. And so once 45 seconds is kind of past here, then I'll continue to brew. And here we go. And so I'm going to start with the center pour, and then I pour consistently in circular motions. And I start, like I said, I like to get all the grounds involved, and then I kind of go from the outside back in. And from this point, I'll kind of just keep my pour centered at about a nickel's width, quarter to nickel width. Just kind of paying attention. Now your brew should be, your water should be rising inside the Chemex, but you'll see that mine was kind of rapidly rising just now. And so I kind of stopped, but usually I like to keep it slow and consistent, just like this, to where the water never comes past the top. You'll see it sinking a little bit. You can see on the edge right there in the shadow, and kind of gauge off of that. But I like to keep a slow and steady pour, paying attention to how much water I'm putting in. Of course, for this particular brew, we're going to do 450 grams of water to 90 or 30 grams of coffee. So I'm almost done pouring here. Again, just nickel. Circular motions. One more drop. At this point, we're just gonna let that drip through, and the coffee's just extracting. It's just water's pouring through. And what you'll notice is, since you've centered poured, you'll notice that a cone will kind of start to develop inside, like a cone-like shape will develop. inside. This will allow the water to properly drip through all of the coffee and extract through the bottom point. Your total brew time for this size Chemex should be about 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes. I usually like to be done pouring the water by 2.5 minutes and allowing the water to drip through for another 60 seconds. At 3.5 minutes, I'll go ahead and discard of this filter. What I like to do, I like to stir my coffee. I like to do it in a light too. It's just something about that color that I like to look at after I brew. That kind of red, orange, and the brown kind of tells me that I got a good extraction. Some good notes are gonna come from the coffee. And I'll let that rest for about a minute and a half. When coffee cools, you'll get some different notes out of it. I like to actually drink the coffee through every single point of temperature. When it's really hot, I'll take a sip. Then when it's kind of lukewarm, I'll drink, and it has some different notes and flavors. And then when it's actually cold, it also has different notes and flavors. And so that's how I like to enjoy my coffee. Again, shouts out to Crown Coffee Roasters. Hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you turn off your scale when you're done. Let's go and enjoy our Crown coffee. Really? She took a break from the video to eat.